Welcome to a very special content marketing takedown. Today we're going to be taking down Pampers, and I have a very special guest that inspired doing this episode. Is my brand new son, only 2 weeks old. Meet Ronan Davis Hudgens, just kind of napping right now. But this cute little bugger is my first child, and super excited to kind of welcome into the world and have him as a guest on this episode. We'll see how it goes. He's not a huge Pampers fan. He prefers to soil his diapers rather than wear them, as babies tend to do. But I'm a very proud father of this guy, and we'll see how this goes and see how he reacts to our feedback on Pampers. But we might have to set him down at some point depending on how he feels about my feedback, as you can tell by his very cute face. So Pampers, as you might expect, very well-known diaper brand, and they're doing a lot with content marketing and being very successful in doing so. But unfortunately, as we'll learn from looking at them, they're actually not doing as well as they should be given the strength of their brand. As you can see from the organic search has been relatively flat for about a year. And despite the sheer authority of Pampers, they're not actually as successful as other companies in the space. Yeah. And as you can tell, Ronan is not a real fan of that. And in general, doesn't like diapers. And I'm still new at this thing, so give me a little. If you guys want to do takedown of my parenting, you are welcome to do that. But for now, let's just give the stiff arm and resume. But as you look at the many different options that Pampers is going up against from an organic standpoint, you can see Pampers, despite the fact that I think most of you would know them, are not super high authority overall. They are high authority compared to others, but in this space, people link out a lot, and therefore Pampers' relative authority compared to many of their primary competitors is not that high. And most people will not be familiar with the Baby List and Baby Center. Bump and What to Expect are relatively well-known brands, but still they're lagging behind competitors from a link authority standpoint. And a lot of that has to do with simply the UX of Pampers. If you look at their general site and how they're doing, it's kind of outdated. They do some things in a modern fashion, such as their newborn breastfeeding article. The text looks fine. It's okay. This is slightly outdated feeling in terms of the nav and the auto loading, assuming that we want that next article as compared to a more related linking type setup. Something that's especially outdated on a lot of their articles are their calculators and more high fidelity content. It looks more outdated, smaller font, harder to read, and this is actually some of the highest value content for them. And it's one of the issues with why they're not ranking. You can see a due date calculator not doing super well. Ronan came a little early, so he's not a fan of due date calculators. He feels they're absolutely inaccurate since he came several weeks early and thinks he's doing just fine, all things considered. So he scoffs at Pampers' due date calculator, as you can see there. But you can see the relative link velocity of Pampers, even though they're high authority, and there's a general sense that authority is going up in this space. It's just not as good as other players. And the bump and also What to Expect are seeing higher velocity on that scale. That means Pampers should actually lose ground if all things stay equal in the current environment. So one of the things you want to look at from an authority standpoint, one when looking at brands like this, is just the relative links to their top pages. And you can infer what is, speaking of Pampers, something is going on down there in the Pampers region right now. But the the links to this section are high authority, or rather, you can infer from what I suggest for many people is actually go to the top pages on Ahrefs or otherwise. And what is valuable about this is you can see what content will passively acquire links by just looking at this. Because very often, even though some of this is probably manual, there is definitely a correlation between ranking and traffic and also the total links. So you as a brand, Pampers as brands can decide what to put effort into based on the ability to power the rest of their site and their authority, which needs more momentum than it does currently. So as we scroll down here, we do see some patterns. Obviously, baby names do generate a lot of interest in links, and they have pages about that. But something that stands out is just the pregnancy week by week concept. This has 200 links, 6 weeks pregnant, 65, 78, 64, 61, 63. In general, you can see this is worthwhile for them to build a really well done week by week asset. They have this, it's just not nearly as good as what to expect. And that's one reason why they're not ranking as well as they could be. So if we look at Pampers version of this, this is what we see on load. We get this annoying pop up with a quiz in the bottom right. It does give a call to action for the app, which is nice. But if we minimize that, we get this image, which is not super nice looking, somewhat grainy, low fidelity. You scroll down, they're immediately hitting you with that ad call to action, which is a little too high to me. Maybe halfway down could be a little bit stronger. Or if you were more impressed with the content, I think you'd be more impressed with that setup. You can see that in general, the design on Pampers is just not as strong. I don't think the overall content framework is bad. It's nice font size, good look to it, but overall pretty decent. But if you compare it to a what to expect, and this is why what to expect is beating them on many different frameworks in terms of total traffic, just nicer setup above the fold, better UX in terms of scrolling in lots of different places. You can see the images and the design is just superior from that standpoint. And that is one reason why it is doing as well as it is. You see the images are just more modern feeling. Even the design and ads are nice and high quality. And it's clear, Mr. Ronan, I think we're going to give you one more chance to agree with us. Might want to go back in his crib and say night night based on his grumpiness currently, as you can never predict these things. But you can see the nice images, more fun avocado here. This is a higher quality experience based on that, and so Pampers I think needs to invest in that experience in order to stand out and rank better overall. As compared to what to expect, because it is really relative to who you are. This feels 5 years old-ish, and you can tell because it's been last updated in 2017, so it's getting there from a total standpoint. So digging in from there, something that's a common trend on Pampers is just their overall graphic design is relatively weak. Images just feel outdated, not premium. Pampers is trying to be a really high quality brand, but it just could be done a lot better than this. And investing in a better site there will also allow them to attract more links. They could pitch an asset like that and do pretty well and be successful that maybe they wouldn't have otherwise, because this doesn't reflect as well on the Pampers brand, even though it does retain the color set. The illustrations are just not sophisticated and just could be done in a lot better fashion than it is currently. Going from there, I think an issue with Pampers generally is that the editorial voice is just not there. It is the Pampers brand, but this is clearly, if you stripped out Pampers, I think most people would really criticize what's going on in this article. It's very clear, straightforward SEO articles, SEO keywords as subheaders, and there's just not any kind of editorial voice or personality to this. And if that's what stance you're going to take, you're never going to be a brand. If you compare that to the week by week setup with what to expect that we saw, they actually had personality with the look of their cute avocado and what we saw there. And the cute avocados are an example of like taking a brand stand that currently Pampers does not do. That is, I think, a common thing wrong with Pampers is it feels like they're doing just basic level work and letting their brand take the weight. And unfortunately, that's just not a good enough in today's world. Another common trend with Pampers is that their site aesthetic is just the URL structure is too long. You see pregnancy, giving birth, and then article. Article is completely redundant here. Compare that to, again, what to expect. very good UX, and they also have clear URL structure and folder structure, which is going to allow them to rank better. They're also more clear about the author coming from a place of authority and having expertise, authority, trust, even though that's kind of built in with Pampers. They only lean into that with their overall setup. And so many things are kind of better about this, including the related linking section that clearly draws your eye. This is going to create people and give them a real strong time on site that currently Pampers does not have the ability to do. Their site will automatically lean and load the next sections, but it's what if I'm not having an epistemotomy? This is not relevant to me. They do a decent job of doing it within the same tag. That's still not strong enough, and there's just too much. I think this maybe could make sense in news, but in their specific section of and needs of pregnancy, I think this is a misapplication of kind of the infinite scroll setup that some sites do use. And that disconnect in their design and how things interconnect, I think, creates that overall misapplication of content. It's not that Pampers is bad. It's just, it's not very uniform in how they do things. The calculators are just kind of outdated, and they overall could use some improvement in how they do things with their content, I think, to catch up to what to expect. And if Pampers to stand out, to summarize this, I think what they can do is do a UX redesign refresh that modernizes the brand, emphasize design, hire designers that reflect the quality of Pampers' new uniform aesthetic that they hopefully establish, and in turn really lean into the what to expect framework, or sorry, the week by week framework as an anchor of their link strategy, as that will power a lot of the other work as well. And they can also look to competitors in their top pages sections. I'm excited to introduce you to Ronan, my new son, and maybe we'll have him on some future episodes.